Everyone. It is great to be here. On behalf of Zebra Technologies, I'd like to welcome you to the MIT Sports Analytics Conference lunchtime presentation. We are honored to participate again this year, and we're really excited to have an insightful and experienced panel here today to give their perspectives on real-time tracking technology data. They'll shed some light on the impact the system has had with the NFL during the 2014 season and the role that real-time player tracking is going to have in football going forward. Before we get started, I would like to tell you a little bit about Zebra Technologies. We're based in Lincolnshire, Illinois, which is just north of Chicago. We are the leader in asset tracking technology, and we have a clear vision to make businesses to give them the insight and information to make them as smart as the world around them. We do this by offering an extensive range of asset tracking technologies. Things like mobile computing, data capture, barcode, wireless LAN, RFID, location systems, and Zatar, which is a cloud-based Internet of Things platform. Since 1969, Zebra and our global partners have helped more than 90% of Fortune 500 companies get information in real time about location, motion, and status of their assets, people, and transactions in their businesses. Today, organizations in multiple industries are using Zebra-generated data to make real-time decisions, improve customer experiences, and create new business value. This operational visibility we call enterprise asset intelligence. Zebra's products and services around the world are used in industries like healthcare, retail, transportation logistics, manufacturing, and now sports. A variety of applications that add a new dimension to what our customers can see and learn about real-time information. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So during the 2014 NFL season, Zebra Technologies and our sports solution was deployed in 18 NFL stadiums and worn on every player in the league. Using patented RFID technology, our MotionWorks software and our sports solution automatically generates the most real-time, reliable, and analyzable big data set in sports. Our system enhances not just the fan experience, but entertainment value, and ultimately used by coaches and players for evaluation and decision making. We are extremely fortunate to have kicked off this season in 2014 with the NFL. It's been a great first year. We had a really valuable experience, and we look forward to continuing our partnership with the NFL in years to come. Beyond football, Zebra's goal is to expand globally and bring the benefits of our technology to amateur and professional sports properties. This will make Zebra's real-time data ubiquitous and an essential part of the future of the sports landscape. Again, I thank you, and I hope you enjoy the conference.
In 2014, Zebra Technology Corporation launched MotionWorks. Using patented RFID technology, Zebra's innovative system automatically generates the most reliable and analyzable big data set in sports to enhance fan and consumer engagement, heighten entertainment value, and produce real-time insights to assist in coaching and player evaluation decisions. Since 1969, Zebra Technology Corporation has been the global leader in barcode and RFID technology, expanding the limits of what more than 90% of Fortune 500 companies can learn about their business through real-time data. Zebra's time-tested and proprietary technology has revolutionized real-time player tracking.
It truly revolutionized player tracking in not just football, but in sports in general. And I think that's why the NFL ultimately decided to go with Zebra and partner together in the 2014 season.
After a highly competitive selection process, the NFL strategically selected Zebra's MotionWorks system to integrate league-wide to enhance an important segment of its business previously limited to static, one-dimensional data.
Zebra's real-time player tracking system is providing unlimited opportunities, both commercially and professionally, not only for the National Football League, but for all of sports.
In 2014, the NFL's primetime global stage was a fitting showcase for premiering the tangible value and unlimited potential for Zebra's groundbreaking technology.
Tonight, CBS Sports, in partnership with the NFL, introduces you to next-generation statistic groundbreaking technology that brings you to the screen never-before-seen player-specific metrics direct from tracking devices worn by every player tonight.
So in conjunction with the NFL, they brought next-generation stats to our Thursday Night Football coverage. Basically, every player on the field is wearing a tracking device. Data comes real-time to a device down here at the trucks. And in the real-time scenario of live television, to be able to say to somebody, boy, he ran fast. Well, yes, he did. He ran 19 miles an hour, and we can show that in our first replay.
The flawless deployment of the MotionWorks system resulted in broad integration throughout NFL's TV broadcasts, which further heightened the fans' viewing experience. Zebra's real-time player tracking system during live game broadcasts now gives fans a new ability to see player participation, groupings, formations, route running, speed, separation, and new distance stats never before featured.
What we learned is that it's not just about the broadcasters, it's also about digital, mobile, and even gaming. There's so much that's possible with this information.
The system also provides coaches with in-depth insights into players during practices, using data never before available to learn more about players' capabilities, develop more targeted coaching plans, and create specific training programs for guiding and monitoring player development over the course of a season and career, all of which will have a positive influence on how the game is played and how fans will experience it. Through its partnership with Zebra, the NFL pioneered new paths in the 2014 season with reliable, real-time data. Zebra's technology, domestically and globally, will continue to quickly evolve in the coming years as Zebra aggressively expands its reach into other amateur and professional sports properties.
When you really think about player tracking and what has evolved, really player tracking has just really started in its formative stages. And with the new technology that's real-time that Zebra brings to the table with its accuracy, it can hurdle that industry to a new height that's never been achievable before.
What's everyone doing? It's good to see everybody. Great to see a full room. Thanks, Zebra, for putting on this event. Thanks for the NFL for putting together this great panel. I think we have a really good discussion. Jill hit on it a lot. From our perspective, from the media's perspective, I think that Zebra's partnership with the NFL was really one of the biggest news stories to come out when you look about the potential and promise of technology, showcasing this technology on such a global stage with the technology and the applications in terms of capturing this high-speed data we talked about, converting it into real-time statistics so the viewers at home can take a look at it, the fans in the venue can use it, coaches can use it. So I think that it's going to bring everybody closer to the game, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today in this panel. We've got a really good cross-section of players and coaches and executives to look at how next-gen stats will be integrated into the league and really change and revolutionize the fan and game experience. So you're here for the panel, not for me, so let me take a moment to introduce each of our great panelists, give them a warm welcome of applause as they take the stage. Our first guest is Vishal Shah. He is with NFL Media Strategy and Development. So give it up for Vishal. Good to see you. All right, our second guest is also from the NFL. He's in football development, the league, longtime player, Matt Burke. All right. Next panelist, you guys all know, this person needs no introduction, a Super Bowl winner from New Orleans Saints, head coach Sean Payton. Coach, good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right. And last but not least, of course, Hall of Famer, NFL Network, fantastic, just wonderful to watch, Mr. Marshall Faulk. Good to see you. All right, so before we get into next-gen stats and some of the panel discussion, I thought we'd just kick it off by giving the audience a little bit of update on what we're doing, what each of you are doing now. And let's start with you. So your role at the league is very intricate in the media space, but elaborate a little bit more on exactly your strategy and your point of view.
Great. First of all, thanks everyone for being here. So my name is Vishal Shah, and I work in the digital media and strategy team. I really focused on a couple of areas of our business. When I think about media applications, it really starts with the content itself. And so focused on the distribution of our content, primarily through third parties, things like digital video syndication, social media, mobile gaming, and also what we do with our owned and operated assets, NFL.com, NFL Mobile, NFL Now. All of it collectively, what we think about is what's the best way to bring the sport of football and the product of football, the experiences, to the fan through the media.
Now, Matt, of course, played locally at Harvard, then with the Ravens, Vikings. I might have had that mixed up in terms of time. Certainly one of the brightest individuals that I've come across in the NFL. Talk a little bit about what your role is now, because you have a new role a little bit at the league.
I couldn't get at MIT, so I went to Harvard. And now I work in the football operations, the football department of the NFL, and football development. And our job is to grow and develop the pipeline of football people. So that just doesn't speak to players, but that's coaches, officials, trainers, general managers, basically anybody who touches the field in some way. And that's throughout the entire continuum of football, from the youth levels all the way up to our level at the NFL.
That's great. And for Coach Payton, I know that you're putting the 2014 season behind you, looking only focused, I'm sure, on 2015. Give the audience a little bit of glimpse into kind of what's on your to-do list these days.
Well, we're all returning. Coaches, players, or I should say college players are returning from the NFL Combine. So at this time of the year for us, there's a lot of time spent on evaluation. Most importantly, our own team, and valuing every player on the roster, including the practice squad players. Then free agency, which begins here in a little over a week, which we'll have a chance to see how we shape with regards to our own roster, but also other players around the league. And then all the while, the combine leading up to the draft is spent really evaluating the college draft class of 2015.
And Marshall Faulk, I hope you're getting a little bit of a break, because every time I turned on air, of course, you were working. And so now that the season's over, combine's over, what's your schedule like? What's on your to-do list?
For me, at this point in time, it's I'm responsible for the running backs. So I'm pretty much getting ready for the draft. I'm responsible. I have to know just about everything about every running back, kind of have an idea of what team, what system that they're going to fit with, what team may take a running back in the first round as if we're not relevant anymore. Yeah, I do. I need a hug.
Are they still relevant?
I need a hug.
They are.
It's serious. Abe, this is funny. Like, they talk about it's a passing league. Nobody cares about the running game. And that's all people keep talking about is, I can't believe Seattle didn't run the football. Really? Really? But that's what I'm responsible for, getting ready for the draft, learning those players. And then I start to pick up and find some training camps to go to, just getting back into the sport, learning the new guys, the new coaches, and getting ready to bring all of that information to the viewers.
I like that you're an advocate for your position.
Of course.
As you should be.
They need
right?
us.
So we're going to start broad. All right. So first off, we're going to talk just about the role of just data in sports and what each of these individuals think about it. Gentlemen, I want you guys to have the conversation. They're here to see you, and then we'll drill down a little bit more into some of the Zebra technologies we talked about, some of the other player tracking technology we talked about. But in general, where have we seen this change in terms of integrating data into sports?
I'll probably kick it off. I mean, I think if you take a step back, data is the backbone for the fan experience for sure. I mean, often delivered and often thought about in the form of statistics itself. And so statistics helps bring a tremendous amount of comparison, but also context. How did a player do this year vis-a-vis last year? How are their teams doing? How are the matchups comparing to it? And so, what historically has been, it's interesting to see the shift of what was static, sort of undifferentiated statistics over time being shifted into things that across sports they're trying to differentiate. How are you bringing that experience to fans in a deeper and richer experience?
I would say when I played all of 2 years ago, obviously you have a measurement. Win-loss is the biggest determinant whether success or failure. That is success or failure, but you're always measuring things. You're always trying to measure things, and as Vishal alluded to, it was these static categories that for a long time stayed the same, but we would use those to see, okay, we won or lost, but how else did we do offensively? We were always measuring ourselves, capturing data, yards rushing, yards passing, boring things like that nowadays, but you're always using data to see how you stack up and essentially evaluate yourself to see how you can do better.
I think from a coaching standpoint, the two things that come to my mind right away with data is, number one, our own tendencies, being mindful of what our opponents are seeing when they break our film down. That information's coming quicker than ever before. And so what used to be 2 or 3 young assistant coaches in a room breaking down film, we're gathering this information on Monday. We have it available immediately. I think just as important for us in week as we prepare to play an opponent is the information we're taking with down and distance, predictability, red zone, what we can expect in the passing game, in the running game, special teams. And it really gets us started with our initial game plan. How we feel like this team's going to play, how they're going to play us, and what the data tells us that they do.
But Coach, I think the audience may be interested too, but you've been in the game for so long. How quickly has this integration and access to data just accelerated for you? I mean, even compared to 5 years ago, is it light years?
Absolutely. I mean, my first year in coaching, 1988, I was in charge of splicing 16 millimeter film, and you only, with one play, had one category to bring this play. You could bring it to the running game, or it could go to a certain type of run, or it could go to red zone or potential. So anymore, it's the film itself is much like our music. If we want to just punch in New England Patriots 3rd down and 2 to 3, we can get a season, we can get the last 4 games, we can get the last 8 weeks, sort it by pass, sort it by field position. It's just a matter of what you're asking.
A little mind-blowing.
It's amazing.
Bit. Yeah. And you were talking at the bar last night, Marshall, about in terms of the changes for you and how.
Yeah, it's all about enhancing the fans' experience with the game and respecting the data that you guys are now privy to. It kind of holds us accountable to, if you're an analyst, you have to be true to the fact with the numbers, because let's be honest, everyone's an analyst now with social media. You're going to get called out, and you have to get it right. And if you don't get it right, it's not just your bosses that you're going to hear it from. And I also believe that with that data, for fans, there's 2 things you want to know, right? You want to know how good is my team? Are they going to make the playoffs? Can they win the Super Bowl? And then the other aspect is fantasy football. Who to draft, why I'm drafting them, should I keep them? Mm-hmm. And all that data is providing the fan information to make decisions on, do you feel good about your team? And then who to keep on your fantasy football team. I mean, there's real football and there's fantasy football. And I think the data plays such a huge role. And now with the tracking of players, the measurables of players and what you decide and how you feel about them, there's more information to help you make a better decision in the fantasy world and definitely in the real world with coaches and GMs and stuff like that.
And the two former players on the panel, if they had the intricacies of the data when you were in college as there are now, scary proposition, good, how would it have changed your development or even your training?
I personally, I say I played all of 2 years ago. I mean, you talk about the changes over the last 20 years. I mean, over the last 2 years, it's been immense. It is a little bit scary, just the amount and the volume of data that is available. And I think right now we're just kind of trying to figure out what part of the data or which metrics are of importance, which ones matter. I think as a player, you just want to know what actually matters. I mean, whether you get the game plan or you're going, what do I need to know as it relates to the big picture?
Hey, for me, I know, and I mean, I've done a lot of work with SAP, being an ambassador with them, and all the stuff that they've done. If I was able to track it, I think I wouldn't have wasted as much time doing stuff that I thought worked. I would know, what worked. You find out, you get to find out what are the things that's going to enhance my abilities. And then we call that when you work smart. You know, there's sometimes you practice and you don't get nothing done. And there's times you practice and, well, we got a lot done today. We worked smart. I believe that information would have allowed me to be a smarter worker as a player.
I need to interject because I was Marshall's college coach his sophomore year. I was actually the running back coach at San Diego State. And so that data back then would have been a nightmare for me. It would have been, because he's one of the smartest players I've ever coached. And for him to have had, just to hear what he just said about, Coach, are we having a smart practice today? It'd be like, Marshall, you've been looking at your zebra stuff again.
Like I said, it holds everyone accountable.
It would have been hold everyone, right? So we went from big data, just data as a concept and as really a function to, in the last year, you've really drilled down with more of the next-gen stats. So let's talk a little bit about now drilling into more specific data, why you went in this path. We'll start from the league perspective.
Yeah, I think a couple things. At a high level, again, as I alluded to earlier, you have some macro things that are happening. One, which is fans are absolutely raising their hands for deeper, richer experiences. You have the proliferation of connected devices. I mean, you know, we often hear about second screen experiences, but the reality is any device, any form where you're consuming content is where you're connected to the world. You see sports leagues adopting it throughout the world. But for us, it was stats have been static for a long period of time. And the technology had evolved to a point where we can track things that we've never tracked before. Anecdotally, in any given season, this past season, we've collected more data than we have in the history of the NFL. And I see that trend continuing each subsequent year, so long as you collect the right data. We started this project well before I even joined the NFL, just identifying a need that said, historically, statistics can be evolved. And we started off tracking a variety of technologies in general. For the NFL, the use cases are very specific. A couple things are you have to solve for the environment. You're working in a stadium that could be in very harsh conditions, dome stadiums. You have frequency issues. Not only do you have broadcast cameras everywhere, but you have mobile cell towers. You have 80,000 fans with cell phones. And then, of course, you have the dynamics that happen on the field itself, which is occlusion. Players are on top of one another. The bursts of speed. Just tracking everything on the wide area down to a 6-inch level was the ultimate goal, the ultimate vision. I think the reality was we didn't know all the particular use cases, but what we did know is if we started tracking X, Y, Z and positional location of players, we could start thinking about a lot of permutations.
And so you brought on Zebra, you put the technology in the buildings.
That's right. And so in the 2014 season, again, this was a sort of years of work in partnership with Zebra, but we installed in 18 stadiums in 2014. We tracked all players across all 32 teams. We were in 130 live games. And as you saw in the video earlier, you started seeing the first manifestations of the delivery for the fan experience. You see it in broadcast. You could see the extensions being pretty prolific in the digital world. And so Zebra was effectively the right partner. I mean, again, we went through a pretty rigorous diligence process evaluating dozens of technologies. And I think it comes down to sort of three things. What's the right technology? Where we identified RFID vis-a-vis other technologies was the right form for our sport. The second factor was really who's the right partner. Again, working and operating in NFL stadiums on any given Sunday is a very, very scaled operation. And so who's going to bring the right resources, the technology expertise, and frankly, the expertise that we don't have. We're not necessarily technologists,
right.
And so who's going to evolve our sport? And I think the last part is really thinking about the next 5 years. Everyone will tell you here that we are scratching the surface of what's in the realm of possible. Zebra has a vision and a roadmap that's not just the 2014 to 2015 season. So when you have the expertise, the R&D roadmap, and the trust of the people behind all the technology, that's where we got really comfortable at the league and the club level.
And also in terms of the technology, chips and shoulder.
That's right. I mean, so the heritage of Zebra just being an asset tracker. I mean, having chips that and Matt and the rest of the team can speak about. I mean, that players don't notice, that are effectively seamless, that improve in form factor and size season after season was a big deal. I turn it over to the panelists, but one of the comments we got 3 years ago when they were pretty bulkier was, "I don't like the way I look." You can't
that wasn't
play.
an offensive lineman. Probably a running back or a DB, maybe. That's for sure. From our office, and I started working. I showed up at the NFL office in August, thinking, okay, I'm a football guy. I spent my entire life in football. I'm working in the football department. This should be pretty easy entry. And I remember my first day, someone started talking about this Zebra Technologies and gave me a PowerPoint deck, and it's kind of like figure this thing out. And talking about the possibilities and thinking, I was very skeptical at first, kind of thinking, well, there's no way. And as the season progressed with the next gen stats, it's like, wow. I mean, it's like Vishal alluded to, I mean, the possibilities are almost endless. And now that we have a year under our belt of these games and all this data that's been captured, what can we do with it? From our office in football development, one, we'll start with the players. Player wellness. I mean, what are players going through during the course of a game? When I play, games were hard. You just knew, hey, games are really hard. But now, exactly what does that mean? What does that mean by position for our guys? So that might affect what we do for recovery for players. That might affect training during the season, training off season, how much time you take off in the off season. What are the ramifications there? I think another thing that we can use Zebra for is with our officials and tracking our officials. I mean, obviously officials are as an important part of our game as anything, and those guys are right 98+% of the time, right? But you only, like offensive linemen, you only notice them when they screw up. So
98%, is that?
Those might be internal numbers.
Right.
Remember, he is a league official.
There's a referee saying that the other referees are right 98% of the time. That's basically what it is, right?
But I don't think anybody's ever looked at that. I mean, we're talking about developing people and making them better. Well, we can track referees to make sure they're in the right spots when being where they're supposed to be, and that again relates to their off-season training. I mean, maybe we're shedding light on some that they haven't thought about or they don't know about.
And Coach, we'll get into more specifically in terms of the use of practice data and things of that. But for you and Marshall, like when you started seeing these be activated and the technology and the data start to come forward to you, like what did it begin to teach you and show you?
For me, the very first thing for our organization was measuring workload. It's one thing to say, boy, it was a tough practice today. We were on the field for 2.5 hours. It was 95 degrees. And yet what it showed me is by position, distance traveled by certain speeds. In other words, the receivers and the defensive backs are 6-7 miles of practice. And I think the number one interest in year one for us was keeping our players healthy, and mainly soft tissue injuries when it comes to hamstrings, muscle pulls. Obviously, we're on top of proper hydration. There was a time 10 years ago where it was you weren't supposed to drink water until practice was over with. And so being able to actually see Brandon Cooks is extending himself much further or much more on Wednesdays than the rest of his position group relative to the other 7 receivers on our roster. the offensive linemen. So it gave us an idea of the workload and then how we might want to practice the following day or the day after a day off. And so it was really player availability, reducing the soft tissue injuries and keeping our guys healthy.
And you had analysts on site who were helping you kind of translate the data and telling you,
because I would
Coach,
get the initial
this.
numbers
Right.
and look, just looking at it, a long blue bar meant a lot, you know, and all of a sudden, pretty soon you begin to measure with their position group. You understand that the average offensive lineman is going to travel 1.8 miles. Now, the very first day or two at practice, you have to understand the offensive lineman walked in circles, you know, just in warm-ups because they knew they were in the field per se to increase their distance traveled. So after
they're the smartest guys on the team, right?
I'm like, what are we doing? Zach Streif's like, we're just trying to make sure our numbers aren't low.
For the next gen stats, for me as an analyst, my job isn't just to analyze the game, but it's to promote the game. And what we have to remember is we are in competition with other sports. And next gen stats, it allows us to bring the fans more information about the game. Distance travel, in game, how fast the player is running. When you see two players, you see a guy break out and a guy catches him.
Right.
How fast both of those guys were running, and then the guy who got caught, he starts to find out his endurance level isn't what it is. And we can talk about that. And it allows us to bring more information to the fan. And in that aspect, when you're sitting at a game, I remember being a kid, there's a couple of things you knew. You knew the score, you knew the time, and maybe how many yards the running back had and the quarterback had. That was it. Now, with next-gen stats, the fan is going to be so informed. And with the abilities to put that information on the mobile device, there's not going to be any downtime for a fan. A play is going to happen. Fans, while the play clock is going before the next play is ran, you're gathering information. So the fan is always will always be engaged into the game. And we're competing, like I said, with other sports. So we want to keep you engaged. We want to keep your eyes on the game. We want to bring the game closer to you. We want you to feel like you're in the game, in a sense, knowing more information about your favorite players or the opponent.
Is it challenging at the network to try to find time in between plays to try to get this data on the air?
Dealing with the real things you have to analyze on how a ball game will be won, and then factoring in the stats. There's times where, you know, it's like it makes it easy. And then there's times when your gut's telling you this team's not going to show up today, but the analytics is telling you, listen, that team's going to win today. And more times than not, the analytics have been right. Huh. You know, as an athlete, your gut, you really want to go with your gut a lot, but the numbers, they don't lie. They do not lie.
And Coach, you said the players were aware of this tracking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And they had some fun with it?
I think every player in our league was aware that this was the first season. We specifically were one of the teams that incorporated it in not only our training camp, but our practice facility.
Right.
And so there was some maybe week 1 or week 2 kinks that we worked through. And then very soon after that, it was providing us, in year 1, our goal was reduce injuries and learn to understand what this meant. Learn to understand what a Wednesday practice in season meant when you had shoulder pads and it was right at 2.5 hours, different than a Friday practice as you're getting closer to the game and you might be on the field for an hour or 50 minutes, and how that, and then paying attention to it, because we're still, with regards to comparing, we're still very early in this. There's no comparable data that's available for us to say, well, that's what a Wednesday should be like.
I want to move on to how it impacts in-game and coaching potential decisions, and then commercially, how it impacts the league and the business, and then we'll finish up with a couple of questions. So, Coach and Matt, certainly to you two, I mean, how will this data, you talked about practice, Coach, but how do you see this impacting the way you manage a game, the way you make coaching decisions on a Sunday, Monday, Thursday, Saturday, whatever, you know?
Well, I think every year there's more data available to myself and our staff, and we look closely at it, and it could be, we'll have the exact percentages, for instance, of 2-point plays, run or pass. Historically in our league, running the ball on a two-point play has been a little bit more efficient or effective than passing the football. When to go for it on fourth down, what are the numbers that suggest you should. Trying to have a beat on that and yet still paying attention to what's taking place in the game. For instance, these variables that your left guard's really having a problem with their defensive tackle. All right, that's not accounted for in what the percentages are giving you. But I do think heading into a game, especially as it pertains to what Marshall was discussing, you know, playing an opponent, the schedule comes out, and more important to me when the schedule comes out after we look at travel, it's looking at games before our game. You know, and there are games that come up every weekend, and all of you are fans, and your team's just had a tough loss, another tough loss, and they're coming home. You know, those are tough games to play. There's certain times when you catch a team, and so, but putting a percent on that or putting the actual data that we're discussing, I mean, in regards to player speed and burst when he's bumped or when he's off, it may dictate how you decide to defend someone. I think a lot of it is, as we sit and have breakfast, you can come up with 10 different things. I'm interested to see how we can apply it to develop quarterbacks, because the hardest thing we have is giving them repetitions, and yet how do we develop a young quarterback?
How do you, I mean, from a league perspective, how do you could see it impacting the actual game?
Well,
like game day? You said officiating.
Yeah, that's a discussion that's going to be had now with the capabilities that this provides. What happens if we do make some or all of this data available during games on the sidelines this year with our tablets? You know, that's not something that we just rush into and say, okay, you know, we have to talk about all the different aspects of that. I mean, competitively, what kind of advantage or disadvantage could that provide to certain teams? I think what's interesting if you step back is, you know, you just watch the combine on TV.
Right.
And we run the 40-yard dash in Indianapolis. Why? The only reason anybody can ever give you is because that's how it's always been done. I mean, forever when I played, Tuesday was the universal day off in the NFL. My last year, John Harbaugh had called in all the veterans to try to. He was going to change it to Monday because his brother had done a study or something and said Monday was actually better to have a day off. Well, as a pro, you wouldn't play a game Sunday and then just Monday lay around your house. You would come in and you'd lift weights and get treatment. And it was almost a mutiny. I remember Ray Lewis and Ed Reed were like, oh no, you're not stealing our day off. Tuesday's our day off. Now, a lot of teams don't take Tuesday off. There's a team that takes Thursdays off. Some teams used to not do anything on Saturdays or walkthrough. Now there's teams on Saturdays that actually get a little bit of a workout. So, I mean, even the change that you've even seen the last couple years, I think is pretty amazing with this data analytics piece with the NFL, because things have remained the same for so long. So, I mean, it's coming, it's out there, but as far as real-time data made available during games, that's something that's going to be thoroughly vetted out.
I chime in and echo Matt's sentiment on a couple fronts. One, which is it just enables the league and the clubs to be much more data-driven. It's the adage, you can't manage what you can't measure. And so to make those decisions with analytics to support it is going to be exceptionally important. From a game operations perspective, the game is just getting faster. No huddle offenses. There's this real-time nature of it. If you were on the sideline, these guys will tell you this wasn't too far long ago where you had young kids pressing print on a printer, putting them in binders, sending that formation out to the coaches. Now you have tablets. Now you have the real-time data. Nobody's statistically there or manually collecting those statistics. You know, from a football rules changes, there's anecdotal evidence, but now you could support it with quantitative evidence. Officiating, health and safety, giving the research institution the data as well to couple it with a lot of the analysis that they're doing. And so, again, I think there's always going to be that silver lining, which is you want to find the signal between the noise. Once you have a ton of data, there's also going to be a lot of, call it false inferences that could be made, but get it in the hands of the right people who can make the right assessment to support all the decisions they're making.
So, but to Marshall and Matt, on a game day, would you want access to some of this data that maybe Coach Payton's getting? Would you care maybe how fast you're recording your speed or your close time on if you were a defensive back on a receiver? Or are you too focused on the game that you don't want that noise?
I would want it if it's good. Like
if it's good data, or
if it's showing that, boy, you had a good week, your numbers, your mess. If it shows that the defensive back or the guy that I'm going against, you know, normally This is what I don't want to know bad information going into the game. I mean, he might have a bad day, but knowing that information ahead of time, sometimes it would do that. But I think if it's during the week of practice, then I know what I need to work on. Right before the game, if I didn't know beforehand, I don't know if I would want to know it right then and there.
Gotcha.
I asked a baseball player once when he was up at the plate, are you studying the pitches? Are you trying to guess pitches? He said, no. He said, empty head, full bat, which was, I kind of applied that to football. From Monday through Saturday, you do all the prep, but game day, you want it broken down to the smallest thing, because there is a physical aspect to the game, and there's a guy across from you who he has bad intentions, at least as I'm talking in the world of alignment. And I don't want to be analyzing too much data when that's going on.
Coach, you like that mindset?
I do.
For
I
your
mean,
players?
Listen, having coached him and he scores a touchdown, I don't need to see the burst. It was plenty good enough. And if he gets tackled from behind, then give me that reading, and I want to show him. But I think, look, there's some very quick ones that you start with. The tablets that we have, our players are able to access. I, like Matt, was a little skeptical. For years we had the photographs where we would be able to look at what was happening, still photos, and in a tablet form we can slide, swipe, we can enlarge, we can actually draw on. But the idea of our call sheets, 12 or 10 guys on the field, is a nightmare for us. It's not enough, or there's too many, and both of which can result in costing your team a game. The idea that we were talking about this morning, your tablet was red until blue meant you were with 11. Anytime it was red, then, because it happens, and you want to have your personnel correct on the field, and you want to have the right personnel. Offenses are changing very quickly, and so there are very simple applications that I can think about on game day that would very much apply. Speed, burst, those measurements I think are going to be more attractive to the fan. But with regards to personnel and with the affirmation as to this is what we're seeing, and not only is this receiver playing in the nickel, he's aligned here 95% of the time, and the fact that that's what we thought going into the game. There's something to be said for data that confirms or validates what you think. You become a more confident play caller.
Abe, and this is, when we think about how it impacts the game and where it's going, as a fan, the one thing that you want to know is the minute that you see something happen and it's spectacular, have I seen this before? And then you want to start comparing. And it'll allow you to compare players in game, players that played once before, and not only will it do that for the fan, I think for coaches and GMs, I think it's going to cut down on a lot of the conversations about, does he still have it? Can he still play? It's like, here's the data. It doesn't lie. When in year 1 through 4, you ran this fast. 5 through whatever year you're in, this is what you're running now. This is what you're doing. This is what your worth is in numbers per se. And does that mean you're slower, you're better, or you're faster, you're worth more? We don't know, but I know, I have a feeling that it's going to be used. A GM and an agent, they're going to sit down, and those numbers that we used to not know, they're going to have those numbers now, and they're going to be able to have that conversation and maybe hopefully speed up the process.
Coach,
just coming off of that, and Matt referenced the 40-yard time at the combine. It's only because there's a 30-year database of prior 40s that we can, and I think we're in the midst of seeing some of these measurables change. I know we are. We're going to look at position specific and be willing to start with a certain year and build from that point forward. There's been a ton of studies being done now on your bone length as it pertains to chances of playing a receiver position, chances of playing a defensive back position. How is your body, how is your chassis basically made up of? And now when you're actually putting it to movements other than just a cone drill, I think that's in the long term is really going to show up in a player evaluation.
One of the things we talk about strategy, and when I played with the old-fashioned photos, during the week, coaches come in with a game plan and we say, hey, we have this new wrinkle this week. We're going to line up like this, and we're going to line this guy up here. And every time he lines up here, this is the play we're going to run. And our saying was, let them figure it out on Monday. Meaning they're not going to know what's happening. They're not going to go every time this guy lines up here, this is the play we're running. But they'll figure it out Monday when they watch the film. Now, if you talk about this guy's line up real-time data during games, so now they're going to have that. So now they can adjust, and you have to adjust. And you just think about just going forward responsibly for the game and for the people who are in the game, especially coaches in this standpoint. What does that do? What does that do for their jobs? I mean, coaches already work a little more than 40 hours a week, right? 45 maybe during the season.
Yeah,
maybe closer to 100.
I think it means that there's going to be more MIT grads coaching.
That's why they're all here.
This information.
So I mean, ultimately in our office and as it relates to football and our people, how does it? We try to kind of extrapolate and see ultimately how is this going to affect not only the game, but our people that are involved.
We only have a few minutes left, and I do want to talk real briefly because there are a lot of commercial opportunities around this data. And as the business guy, I have to ask you, where do you see either being able to commercialize some of this data across broadcasts, digital, gaming?
I think all those are options. I mean, it's the commercial applications are pretty prolific. I mean, again, you saw just the beginning, and there hasn't really been a fair amount of innovation on the broadcast since the first and 10 yellow line. And so integrating.
Don't tell that to the broadcasters.
What's that?
No.
Well, the commentary and the storytelling has gotten a lot better, but we want to support that with the data. And so I think for the telecast, you could think about the digital executions. For those of you who go to content sites in NFL.com, Game Center, Fantasy Football, are you seeing the formation of plays, the X's and O's as if they're happening? You have tablets and smartphones while you're watching the game, interactive experiences. And so I think there's going to be a set of distributors, a set of device manufacturers, and again, everyone's looking for differentiated experiences. The fans vote every single day about their consumption habits. You're consuming more entertainment every single week. And so just having the data be able to augment your experience is going to be very prolific going forward.
Real quickly, Coach, tough question, but when do you punt on the data and go with gut?
Well, I think based on the game, I mean, I think you have to pay attention to your gut. I think there's certain things that are more important to me with regards to percentages. The percentages of recovering an onside kick are one thing, without it being an obvious situation. I think you have to rely on your gut, but I think during the week that data can shape ultimately the way you feel and what your gut is.
So it impacts your gut.
Absolutely.
Question from the audience. You mentioned a lot about the combine. How could it, this type of data, impact the combine? A lot of you say that we may not even need some of the player tests we currently do.
That's a project we'll be working on this offseason. I think once we look at the data that was gathered in game this year, I mean maybe it's important to know how fast a DB or a wide receiver can go 60 yards. Maybe for an offensive lineman, it's only 20 yards, but we can actually see that in game. How far are these guys running? I mean, what are the real or improved measures of importance and value as it relates to evaluating players and whether or not they should be drafted in the first round or a sixth round, which is where all the gems are. Marshall, sixth round.
I think you'll see it. I think you'll see it grandfathered in, much like I can recall the first year they were putting the speed, the jugs gun per se, on quarterback ball velocity. So I think you'll gradually see position-specific change where it won't be just one whole new set of drills. It'll gradually phase itself in, I think, as we know more and more what we're looking for from an offensive lineman compared to a running back.
So you told one of my reporters that you thought the quarterback may be in almost a simulator in terms of the combine.
Yeah, look, the challenge we have all the time is that's the one position, there's only one of them in the game all the time. And granted, there's only one center, but there's 4 other offensive linemen playing, defensive linemen playing, so the game ends, and how do you get those guys snaps? real-time snaps, and much like we develop pilots, they do a lot of simulator work. I think that opportunity exists, especially when you're able to accurately show movement with chips, exactly how it unfolds with the defense. I want you to get in 2 games today, and it's going to be the Jets and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. Wow, and you're going to be able to go in, put your headset on, and make your calls, make your audibles, and really see the numbers and see the movement. I see that having a place.
I said, question here from the audience in terms of what can this data help on player health and wellness?
I think
it's 2 players here.
I think we'll know exactly what the wear and tear is of a game, and now you see teams with performance specialists. So it's all about Sunday. I mean, in our business, I mean, Monday morning when your foot hits the floor, you don't feel so good. It's, as a player, your mindset is, okay, how can I get to Sunday feeling good? So obviously knowing what you go through on Sunday, exactly what you go through. Hey, that was a hard game. And they're all hard games, but knowing exactly how hard that game was and what you have to do during the week to get yourself ramped back up. So on Sunday you're ready to go.
Yeah, I believe it's going to extend careers. It's going to help the players because I feel like a lot of my great plays, a lot of my talents were used up in practice, not in games. And when you start practicing smarter, and not just the player, but the coach understanding, okay, that guy only needs X amount of reps, and he will be ready. Instead of, let's just do it again. That was the, hey, we have this much time to practice, let's keep practicing, instead of, we got our work done, hey, we're finished, we're ahead of time, let's get off the field.
So he's referencing his NFL experience, not
yes.
his college
Oh,
experience.
okay.
Yes.
In terms of having his best plays
in college, it's back then,
Smart
you
practice.
could practice
Smart practice.
as long as you wanted to.
I think we're seeing it now. With regards
smarter,
to injury,
more efficient organization.
I think it's
right?
the first thing that came to, at least, I think we can apply this immediately. And from the simple idea of this guy's doing a lot in practice, more than his peers, more than the others. Let's make sure that we're not dealing with a hamstring injury here in 2 days. So I think immediately it has an impact on reducing injuries.
And not to mention, when you can track a player, definitely in training camp, you then know, okay, he needs to hydrate more. This guy, maybe you got to be in the cold tub. You start to prescribe things to make that player, to help that player kind of recoup a lot faster, a lot better, so you can get him back on the field and continue to work smart.
So before I ask each of these individuals their Super Bowl pick for next year, I do want to know exactly, from the league perspective, any major takeaway that audience should be looking for the 15-16 season as it comes to this?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, again, next-gen stats is a league priority. We truly believe it's going to impact every single area of our business and the club's business. When you think about the future, and 24 months away is really not that far away, but a lot can happen in that duration. And so what we get excited about is the methodical distribution and then ultimately the democratization of the data itself. I think we fully recognize that we have a bunch of use cases in our minds. We think we know how to use it, but the entire purpose of this conference, having data as a service and very smart people look at what are the different ways that they could leverage upon it, build specific applications, help us engage with the fans better, and also engage with the players better. That's what we look forward to for the next 24 months.
The football operations department of the National Football League, during the season, it's pretty busy. You're worried about a lot of different things that are going on with the games and the season. And in the NFL, there's no such thing as just another day. There's always things happening. But this like I said, the Zebra was in August was sort of given to us like, hey, Zebra Technologies, and as everybody's began to learn about it and become really intrigued by it. So now that we're in the off season, I think the 3 areas that we're committed to exploring is player wellness, the officials, and with the combine too, because believe it or not, I didn't run a real good 40 time at the combine in 1998, so I'm a little bitter. It's more of a personal vendetta against those drills. No,
we'll let you run it again.
Can I?
Yeah, we can. Yes,
now?
We can set that up.
I think I have a soft tissue injury. But those things too, and that provides a service for our clubs. That would come back to the evaluation of players.
Coach, what are you going to focus on?
I think immediately for us, with 1 year now of practice data, it will shape us with regards to how we practice in May, and really more importantly, training camp and in season, and us really looking at avoiding those days where we can point to workload and how it related to injuries. It will shape our calendar.
Marshall?
As an analyst, basically, we look forward to when you have a good game, you don't have to talk much. Having the stats, being able to track players, you see it. It's in preseason, or let's say you get a bad game, providing information for the analysts to talk about, to keep you into the game, to keep you interested into it. And if we can do that, if we can continue to track players and continue to find out stuff, I always find preseason challenging because new players, you don't really know much about those players. They're on your team. What kind of information you can give to the fan? And I think that being able to track them in game and seeing those stats on the television, knowing how fast they're running, the distance traveled, because sometimes you don't even think about how far a running back ran to get 10 yards sometimes. I mean, sometimes you got to run 20 to get 10. And explaining all of that stuff, having those conversations while on air to keep the fan engaged.
And I take it you're not going to give the audience your Super Bowl 50 pick yet.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, who is it?
I don't know.
Okay. Hey, I thought it was a great panel. These guys are good sports.
He's
I
from
didn't
New
think,
Orleans, that's his hometown.
I picked New Orleans last year.
You were off a year.
Okay. All right.
You didn't have zebra.
Ask me again.
who's going to be your
New Orleans.
There you go.
There you go.
Great panel, good sports. Everyone have a great, thanks Steve, thanks to the NFL.